Hey, today I'm getting started with making sourdough baguettes, and of course with sourdough, you need a sourdough starter. See, it says right here, starter. So this starter has been in the fridge for 2-3 days now, which means that it's dormant, it's not active. And dormant starter you can use to make things like biscuits or scones or cookies, because the leaven there is going to be the baking powder or the baking soda. But since I want to make baguettes, I have to restart the starter so that it bubbles up and is active. So the way that works is put it on a scale, zero it out, and you add water. This is filtered water. I'm adding about 200 grams of water. Well, not about, exactly 200 grams. And you want to add the same, always want to add the same amount of flour in grams. And so I'm adding another 200 in flour. So it goes up. Whoop, that was a little bit too much. You want to be pretty precise about this. So I'm going to take some out. So I get down to pretty much exactly 200 flour. Yep, 200. Oh boy, there's flour everywhere as usual. And now you just mix it up really well. You get all the clumps out. And then, after mixing, it goes on the counter for about 4 to 6 hours, and it's going to bubble up about that much. It's right about here right now. It's going to bubble up to about here. And then you're ready to mix dough. So the starter has been resting on the counter for about 4 hours now. It's a nice, beautiful day here, warm in Ojai, and so it only took about 4 hours, and oh, it smells great. You can see how it's bubbled up, I think, and it's ready to go. But we're not using it yet. It's going to have to wait another 20 minutes, because first we're going to do this thing called autolyse, which basically means, which you do for baguettes and other doughs that don't have things like eggs and stuff in it. This recipe just has water, flour, and salt. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix together just the water and the flour, just get it to come together, and then we're going to let it sit for 20 minutes, and that's called autolyse. I think some French guy came up with this. And so we're doing 70% hydration. You can look it up if you want to see what that means. So that means for 500 grams of flour, we use 350 grams of water, filtered water. Okay, let me see if I can get this down to 500 grams. Uh, 496, 97. And the more precise you are with this, the more consistent you're going to be with your bread. So it's 503 grams, that's fine. And so now for the autolyse, all you want to do is just mix it together so it comes together so that the flour is wet. And it can sit there, and the flour can absorb the water. And this will help a lot with the formation of gluten, and that'll make the bread stronger, and it'll make it a lot better. So I'm going to mix this together and let it sit for 20 minutes. All right, so it turns out the flour water mixture here has been autolysing for about an hour and a half, because the gardeners showed up and they're making all kinds of racket with their weed whackers and blowers and stuff. But anyway, what you can see is it's become pretty strong here, the dough. And I've autolysed about up to 3 hours, but usually I just do 20 minutes. But you can do up to 3 hours, and it really does improve the strength of the dough. Anyway, now what we do is we add the starter. And the other thing about now the starter having been out for another hour and a half, it's still strong. It may smell a little bit stronger, but that shows you that you don't really have to be that precise with when you use your starter. And yeah, you can have a window of maybe 2 or 3 hours from when it's bubbled all the way up to when you can actually use it. So I'm going to add it to the to the flour and the water here. Look, make sure it's zeroed out, and add 100 grams of starter. Again, you want to be pretty precise. And one thing you don't want to forget when you're making bread, like in this case, baguettes, you don't want to forget the salt, because if you forget the salt, you're screwed. So in this recipe, 500 grams of flour is 10 grams of salt. So you really always want to make sure that the salt goes in there. So Normally I'd use, for a larger batch, I'd use a mixer, but here I'm doing it by hand, so I'm going to just start mixing it here with the spoon. And after a while, once it's incorporated, I think I'm going to go in there with my hands and really give it a good knead so that everything gets incorporated, the starter and the salt. But after I'm done with that, it's going to go and sit on the counter for a half an hour. I'm going to do a stretch and fold, wait another half hour, do another stretch and fold. And I think because I'm doing this by hand, I'm going to do 3 stretch and folds. Usually when I mix with a mixer, I only do 2 stretches and folds, but this time I'm going to do 3. And then, so I'll see you back then when I do that. All right, so the dough, I've stretched and folded it 2 times now, and I don't know if you can see this. There's little bubbles forming right here and here, so it's going at it. And so the first time it was 30 minutes, I stretched and folded. Second time I wanted to go to Topa, so it was like 25 minutes. And now I went to Topa, and it's been about an hour and a half. So what I'm trying to say is, it doesn't really matter as long as you have give it some rest, give it some time, and then you do your stretch and fold. Everything's fine. So the way you do this is, so I have some water here. I'm going to wet my hands because that way it doesn't stick as much. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab it, stretch it, and fold it over. Turn it, grab it, stretch it, fold it over, grab it, stretch it, fold it over, grab it, stretch it, and fold it over. If you want to really get into it, you can just grab the whole thing and just pull it, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to develop the gluten. And it is pretty amazing because, I mean, after 3 times now, well, I mean, it's really stretchy and foldy. So now what happens is, boom, it goes in the fridge, and you can do overnight. You can do 24 hours, but I personally like to do 48 hours. And that gives it time to rest, gives the sourdough time to do its thing with the gluten, to reduce the sugars, to reduce the gluten, and add flavor. And then it's going to be yummy. So this goes in the fridge for me for 48 hours. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to shape it. I'm working on baguettes, and the dough has been sitting in the fridge for, it ended up being 3 days. And that's actually really good. I've never done it more than 3 days long, but 3 days overnight is, of course, great. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. It really develops the flavor. It lowers the gluten in the bread, and it also lowers the sugars, and so it makes it much more digestible, and it also gives it a really great flavor. So I've already started here. I've shaped a couple. This is a couche. It's a linen towel or linen cloth, and it's got some flour on it so they don't stick. So basically what you do is you grab the dough, put it on some flour, get some flour in your fingers, pat it out, fold it over 2/3, another time 2/3 after turning it, and then what you want to do is you want to build tension on what will end up being the top of the baguette. Then you can take it and you can roll it a little bit if you like. You can roll it out if you like. I like it this size. It's my favorite. And you just keep going until you have them all shaped. And then I cover them, and then they sit here for 20 minutes. And in the meantime, I preheat the oven or heat the oven, and then it's time to bake. I'm working on baguettes here, and so they've been in the couche here for about 20 minutes, and now they're ready to be transferred over to a parchment-lined baking tray. And once you've done that, you take a little bit of flour, that's what I'd like to do, and sprinkle them with a little bit of flour. It makes them look prettier, and it also gives them a little bit of a more rustic look. I had some flour left over, so I made a little blooch in here, so that's sort of fun. Anyway, so now you take your lame, which is basically just a razor blade on this little stick here, and you make decisive cuts like that down, because that's where you want the baguette to break open when it bakes. So now it goes into an oven. It's heated to about 530. That's about as far as mine goes, for 25 minutes with trays in the bottom that have lava rocks in them. And after I put the bread in the oven, I pour hot water or boiling water over these, and that generates steam for the first 10 minutes until it evaporates. And the steam makes it so that the top of the dough doesn't get hard, so that the dough can expand. and you get nice and plump baguettes. All right, the baguettes were in the oven for, it actually turned out to be 28 minutes. At 25, they weren't quite brown enough, so I let them go for another 3 minutes, and yeah, they're looking pretty good. You can see how it broke open here where I cut the baguette with the lame, and they look really pretty with the flour here on top. So you also don't want to eat this right out of the oven. You want to let it sit for 15-20 minutes, so that because it still keeps baking on the inside, and if you cut it open right away, it'll still be gooey. But now it's been about 20 minutes. Oh my God, and it's so nice and crunchy. Oh yeah. Check out the inside. Nice and airy and chewy. Oh man, the smell is fantastic. And you know, you can put anything on these things, but right now, all I want is to have a little bit of butter on it, because I want to taste the bread. And of course, just with butter is really good. The inside is so chewy. The crust, crunchy. Beautiful flavor. It really is worth it. I love it.